We've got quite a few early educators and families on the line. And if it's okay with you, we're just going to let them jump into questions. Myself, I'm Tyrone Scott, and Sim Lowe from Children's Village will just be reading them so you don't have to hear a whole bunch of different voices. So if it works, we'll jump right in.
Sure.
Great. First question is generic. We're asking every candidate this. What would you do in your first 90 days to expand early learning opportunities?
In the first 90 days, we are going to review our level of funding, and we're going to figure out how we can increase those seats. For those of you who know me, you know I am no Johnny-come-lately supporter to early childhood education. I'm proud of the action we took on council, even when they put our pictures up in supermarkets to criticize those of us who made the funding of PHL pre-K a priority. And we will see how we can find a way to increase those seats. And I also want, and this is extremely important to me because I'm not just talking to you, I talk to providers and workers quite often, and we've got to figure out a way to increase the salaries for those people who do this work if we want to continue to get quality. So I'm going to the public sector, the private sector, local, state, and federal government to secure funding.
Excellent. That's actually one of the next questions that was on here is what could you do to help with funding, knowing that there's so much turnover. So thank you for that. We have another question asking about the Day Without Childcare. You joined last year, I believe. It's going to be at City Hall Monday at 9 a.m. Folks want to know if you'll be able to stop by this year.
Oh, so listen, I'm not controlling my life right now. And listen, it makes me, for those of you who are on this call who know me, I feel very vulnerable. So what I'm going to ask that you do is text that or email that information to my team, Tanyelle or Sincere or Aaron. Let's let them get it ASAP because I would love to be there. I felt last year, and I thought about this after I left. I'm glad you brought it up. I felt last year just like I feel with the sanitation workers in particular. You let us go a day without trash being picked up, and you will see how essential the workers are to what we do. And with childcare, it's exactly the same thing. It's why I'm fighting hard to make some adjustments to traditional public education in what I propose. And if I can be there on Monday, I will. I'm telling you, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being with the workers. And quite frankly, I was also supportive of PHL pre-K because people didn't talk about it as an economic tool to put people on a path to self-sufficiency by supporting Black small business owners. We never talked about that, but I saw the number of Black women-owned home-based providers and those who were able to make the shift to get on commercial quarters and expand and, more professionalize their operations. And I was extremely proud of that. So if I can be there on Monday, rest assured I will.
That's great. That's great. So next questions is on children with disability. How are you able to ensure they can access early childhood educations with appropriate support?
Well, number one, we need to make sure that there is a coordinated approach with Elwyn. I happen to have a son. I'm a part of the Old Moms Club. I had my son when I was 39, a month before I was about to turn 40. And my son needed speech therapy. He also needed occupational therapy. And we got those early supports through Elwyn. And what I've learned sometimes is that, particularly when I think about families that are where English is their second language, it's not their main language, and or just folks who need assistance. If you don't have the right advocate or the right point of contact, sometimes people begin planning for you, no communication so that you understand how you get the best supports, the scheduling for the supports and services. So we've got to work with Elwyn extremely closely, and we've got to redefine to a certain degree that intersection between the services being provided along with the parents. And we have to do things that are convenient for parents and not just convenient for the providers. And with all due respect, I don't say that as from the outside looking in. I say that as a parent who needed that support.
And the
That,
next,
go ahead,
sorry,
Sam.
the next question is, oh my goodness. The next question is on workers' compensations. How will you ensure that the adults that work in early childhood education get a livable wage that will ensure that they stay in the professions?
So listen, one of the things that I want to fight for, and I'm going to continue to fight for, and I was an early supporter of the fight for 15. I'm talking about a $15 minimum wage. But if you were to go to something and Google it for me when you can, it's the MIT living wage calculator. $15 is not even a living wage. For a single person right now, a living wage is at, according to the calculator, I think about $17.53 or $17.58. Can't remember the exact cents. Nevertheless, not only do we have to advocate for that in Harrisburg, but once we do that, guess what? Our providers, they're going to need access to additional revenue if that were to occur so that they can pay that amount. So it calls for strong intergovernmental cooperation between local, state, and federal government. And that's something that I will be unwavering in my support of. And for all of the providers, if there are any parents on, a whole lot of people running for mayor can do a whole lot of talking about what their vision is and what they would do in the future. I want you to use as an example or a barometer about my commitment to early childhood education, not just what I say, but what I've done in the past and how I stood up before it was a popular thing to do. And I'm happy to see that some of my opponents who weren't for the beverage tax, who didn't support it, who used it as a way to get people upset and talk about how the tax was disproportionately impacting Black and brown people because, we drunk the most sodas, but they were only thinking about us as consumers. They didn't think about early childhood education being the great equalizer. I'm a teacher by profession, a high school English teacher, NTE pass, Praxis pass. And I know that when a child gets into kindergarten, we know immediately those who had a structured, organized, access to organized early childhood education in pre-K. Well, I'm talking about when they're 3 and they're 4, because they are, light ways ahead of those who did not. And so I'm going to do what I continue to do for the industry, but I'm also going to advocate for a higher rate, especially if we can increase the wage, because the providers can't do it.
You brought up some really good points there, and this actually leads to another question that Ernie asked about making sure parents know about the different funding streams that they have open to them. What could your administration do to let folks know about not just PHL pre-K, but Child Care Works, Pre-K Counts, Head Start, and all the different programs that are available to them?
Ernie, thank you so very much for that question. And I appreciate that, Ernie, because I'm an organizational dynamics person. There is nothing that frustrates me more than all of the programs that we have functioning in the city. We don't have a standard way to communicate with the public. So this is what I've committed to doing. I'm going to have a mayor's community council in every council district. So that means we'll have 10 in each district for neighborhoods across the city. That is going to be a main point of distribution for access to information in neighborhoods across the city, and business associations, early childhood education providers, faith-based leaders, block captains, committee people. Everybody will have an opportunity to be a part of that. We will disseminate great information through that vehicle, but we also need to have it web-based and app-based. And I'm getting ready to say something that a lot of people may not get. We also have to make sure that the information is in our senior citizen centers. Why is that? Because there are a whole lot of senior citizens who are now raising their grandchildren. Cherelle, how do you know? It's called kinship care, but it's not because I read a white paper or I had to have a professor to tell me about it. I know because I was one of those kids. I lost my mother early. She was a single teenage mother, but my grandmother and my grandfather basically raised me since birth. And they weren't technical people. If they were here right now, as a matter of fact, my grandmother probably still be trying to use a rotary phone to call somebody. But we have to make sure that for those for whom English is not their primary language, all of our immigrant communities, and we have to make sure that our seniors, they have access to the paper. And we use our senior centers in every way possible. But we just have to have a more coordinated approach, and that's how my mind works. And that's what I'll do in the Parker administration.
That leads to another question asked by Melissa. You talked about making sure that everyone gets the information in different ways. How would you elevate parent voices and let them kind of feed your administration policies around early education?
One of the things.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask everyone to please mute themselves. Yes, thank you very much. Ms. Parker, go ahead.
One of the things that when you heard me mention the Mayor's Community Council, for those of you who would like to know sort of how it functions, it's not a new concept for me. I founded a Mayor's Community Council in the area that I live in. And the way we do it is we have a Mount Airy Community Council, right? We did it in our community, and we have different committees, right? A public safety committee, quality of life, education committee. And you have groups that work through these committees. When you have this structure, you have to have one that specifically focuses on early childhood education, because the last thing that I'm ever going to give anybody in the city the ability to say about me, because I haven't done it in my district, is that we are going to make sure that the only time our people interact with government and to get information about government, it's not going to be while I'm running for re-election or I'm running and asking for somebody's vote. Government will be structured that way. And that is going to be the difference in what we do. And when we talk about accessing those services, we've got to be talking about 24 hours. Right? It's nothing more frustrating, and I won't name it. There is an early childhood education provider that has a super big sign on their business, and they advertise that 24-hour care is available at their location. However, if you go in and talk to the provider, who I know well, who's been very active in the community, and I said to her, well, somebody came in and they told you that they worked the night shift, and they don't want anybody to come into their house. They would prefer that they bring their child to you. And you said that you're not available. And she said to me, Cherelle, I advertise it because that's the way we started it. But particularly since the pandemic, she said, I can't find the staff to do that. So we've got to train. We got to use CCP. We've got to train our students. Even in the school district of Philadelphia, I'm talking about bringing the building trades in and all of the industries that are thriving, training for city jobs. You know, I don't care if it's police or fire, water, sanitation. We should be training our kids to get prepared to do these jobs. And early childhood education is also one of those areas that we should be training for. So I just needed to state that for the record. I apologize to you all that I have to go. I'm en route right now to the Committee of 70 Candidates debate. I've got to do a prep call with my team, but I want you to know that I'm readily available. I'm also no Johnny come lately to supporting you all and early childhood educators, you know, in general, particularly those who are home based. I was proud to be the lead advocate to ensure that backroom technical supports for those providers was available. And I'm not going to change in midstream. Who I say I am, and I don't change my message depending on the audience. But I can't win without you all supporting me and being there for me. And I hope I can count on your support.
Ms. Parker, we think.
There's a couple of requests for posters for you.
Yes, now this is what I'm gonna, and y'all better, if y'all tell anybody about this, I'm going to get mad at you. Let me see if this is here. Okay, my campaign office. Okay, here it is. Y'all won't get mad at me because I was about to tell you. Yeah, I was about to tell you, I didn't know what the number for you to call, but I have it right here. My campaign office is located at 8319 Stinton Avenue. That's right at Stinton and Allen's Lane, like one half a block above Stinton and Mount Pleasant. I'm right on the corner, and you'll see the posters. They also have a telephone number for me, which is 267-259-9196. 267-259-9196. And I do have a website that's called CherelleParker.com. I thank you all so very much, and I can't win without you. If you're not talking to your parents, talking to other providers, and my hope is that the message is Cherelle Parker didn't just start supporting us when she came to ask for our vote. She's been in our corner even when it wasn't easy, even when the millionaires said you can't get this funding source because it's going to cut into their margins. I didn't care. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And she gave us ways to contact her. So I know there are a lot of questions that didn't get quite answered, but you know her campaign. So she's definitely available and accessible to us. And we'll make sure that we also provide her with the information for Day Without Childcare to see if she can join us, so folks can interact with her in person.